What would you do if the love of your life turned out to be a complete stranger? Imagine devoting your heart to someone, building a future together, sharing laughter, dreams, and intimate moments, only to wake up one day and realize that the person you trusted most had been keeping a life-altering secret. A secret so profound, so deeply hidden, that when it was finally revealed, it shattered the very foundation of everything you thought was real. For Michael Reynolds, love was supposed to be his greatest joy, the beginning of a beautiful forever. He had found the woman of his dreams, Brenda Dennison. She was everything he had ever wanted, charming, radiant, and full of life. Their love story seemed like something out of a romance novel, the kind of connection people spent their whole lives searching for. But what happens when that perfect love story turns into something unrecognizable? When devotion turns to doubt, and doubt turns to rage? This is not just a story about love. It's a story about deception. A story about the darkness that can creep into even the happiest of homes. Because when Michael Reynolds discovered his wife's secret, something inside him snapped. And in a single, horrifying moment, love was no longer the emotion that consumed him. It was something far more dangerous. Michael Reynolds was the kind of man people respected. At just 29 years old, he had built a promising career in the corporate world, working as an assistant manager at a well-known Dallas firm. He was known for his sharp mind, his dedication, and his quiet confidence. A man who believed in hard work, stability, and above all, honesty. To his friends and colleagues, he was someone with his whole future ahead of him, ambitious, responsible, and seemingly destined for success. But beyond his career, there was something Michael longed for even more, a love that would stand the test of time. He wasn't interested in fleeting romances or casual relationships. He wanted something real. Someone he could build a future with. And then, he met her. Brenda Dennison was a woman who turned heads wherever she went. At 27, she had already made a name for herself as one of Dallas's most talented hairstylists. Her salon was always buzzing with clients, each one drawn to her not just for her skill but for the warmth she exuded. She had a presence that was magnetic, her laughter, her charm, the effortless way she could make people feel special. She was the kind of woman who left an impression, and Michael was no exception. Their paths crossed at a church event, a gathering meant to inspire young professionals in their faith, careers, and relationships. It was supposed to be just another event, another evening of polite conversations and networking. But for Michael and Brenda, it became something much more. A chance meeting that quickly turned into something deeper. There was an undeniable chemistry between them. Their conversations flowed with ease, as if they had known each other for years. Michael was captivated by Brenda's confidence, her energy, and the way she seemed to light up every room she walked into. And Brenda? She saw in Michael something rare, a man who was kind, driven, and genuinely interested in her beyond just her beauty. From the moment Michael and Brenda met at the church event, their connection was undeniable. What started as a simple conversation quickly turned into something deeper. That night, they exchanged numbers, and from then on, they were in constant contact. Calls stretched late into the night, filled with laughter, stories, and dreams for the future. Michael admired Brenda's energy and passion. She was ambitious, driven, and had a warmth that made him feel at ease. Brenda, in turn, was drawn to Michael's steady presence. He was kind, thoughtful, and had a quiet confidence that made her feel safe. Their relationship progressed quickly, and within weeks, they were spending nearly all their free time together. Dallas, Texas, became the backdrop of their love story. They explored the city together, dinners at cozy restaurants, walks through bustling streets, and quiet moments in their favorite coffee shop, where they would sit for hours, lost in conversation. Michael was falling fast, and so was Brenda. For Michael, this was everything he had been searching for. He had waited for the right woman, and now, he was certain he had found her. Brenda was affectionate, supportive, and seemed just as invested in their future as he was. She would talk about their dreams together, where they might live, the kind of home they'd build, the life they'd share. It didn't take long for Michael to make up his mind. He knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Brenda, and he wasn't the type to wait once he was sure. Just a few months into their relationship, he planned the perfect moment. One evening, during a quiet dinner, he took her hand and looked into her eyes. Then, with a steady voice and a heart full of love, he asked her to be his wife. Brenda didn't hesitate. Her eyes filled with tears, and with a beaming smile, she said yes. It was a moment of pure happiness, a promise of forever. Their wedding was a celebration of love. Friends and family gathered, witnessing what seemed like a perfect union. Michael and Brenda stood together, exchanging vows, sealing their commitment with promises of trust, devotion, and a future built on love. For everyone who saw them, they were the perfect couple, deeply in love, full of excitement for the life ahead. But behind the joy, behind the celebrations, there were small moments, subtle, almost unnoticeable, that hinted at something deeper beneath the surface. Brenda was affectionate and loving, but at times, there was something else. Moments when she seemed distant, lost in thought. When Michael would ask what was wrong, she would smile and brush it off, saying she was just tired or stressed from work. There were small inconsistencies, times when her stories didn't quite add up, when she avoided certain topics, or when she changed the subject quickly. Michael noticed, but he dismissed them. After all, no one was perfect. Everyone had things they struggled with, things they weren't ready to share. And Brenda loved him, he was sure of that. Whatever was on her mind, he believed she would tell him when she was ready. What he didn't know was that Brenda was keeping a secret. A secret that would change everything. The first few weeks after their wedding were filled with joy. The honeymoon phase was everything Michael had dreamed of, romantic dinners, whispered promises, and the deepening bond between him and Brenda. He felt like the luckiest man alive, convinced that their love was unshakable. But then, something changed. At first, it was subtle. Brenda, once so open and affectionate, started pulling away. She seemed distracted, preoccupied with something she wouldn't talk about. Michael would catch her staring off into the distance, lost in thought, her usual radiant smile replaced by a quiet unease. Then came the phone calls. Brenda had always been social, but now, her phone never seemed to leave her hand. And unlike before, she wasn't as eager to share who was calling or what the conversations were about. Michael would ask, and she would give vague answers, business matters, a friend needing advice, salon suppliers. But there was something off about it. Something that didn't sit right. He tried to dismiss it. She was busy, he told himself. Running a salon wasn't easy, and she had always been passionate about her work. Maybe she was just dealing with the pressures of her business. Maybe he was overthinking things. But doubt has a way of growing. One evening, he came home earlier than expected and found Brenda in their bedroom, speaking in hushed tones on the phone. The moment she noticed him, she tensed. Then, with a forced smile, she ended the call quickly. "Who was that?" Michael asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a supplier," Brenda replied, setting her phone down. Something in her tone made his stomach tighten. But he let it go. He didn't want to seem paranoid. Days turned into weeks, and the secrecy continued. She was spending more time away from home, often returning late, sometimes without an explanation. And even when she was home, she wasn't really there. Michael's patience began to wear thin. Then, one evening, everything changed. Michael was putting away some laundry when he noticed a small, worn-out box tucked deep inside Brenda's wardrobe. It wasn't something he had seen before. Curiosity took over. He reached for it, pulling it out carefully. As he lifted the lid, a stack of neatly arranged documents greeted him. At first, it was just the usual paperwork, old identification cards, certificates, and receipts. But then, something slipped from the pile and landed on the floor. A birth certificate. Michael bent down and picked it up. His eyes scanned the paper, his breath catching in his throat. The name at the top wasn't Brenda Dennison. It was Brayton Dennison. His mind reeled, struggling to process what he was seeing. He checked the date of birth and the parents' names. Everything matched Brenda's background, except for one glaring truth. Brenda had been born a man. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. His hands trembled as he sifted through the rest of the documents, each one confirming what his mind refused to accept. Brenda, the woman he loved, the woman he had just married, had been hiding the truth about who she really was. Shock turned into disbelief. Disbelief into confusion. Why hadn't she told him? Why had she kept this from him? Had their entire relationship been a lie? A cold sweat covered his skin as he sat on the bed, staring at the documents. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. Questions swirled in his mind, but none came with answers. Hours passed, but Michael didn't move. He sat in silence, waiting for Brenda to come home. When the front door finally opened, he felt his entire body tense. Brenda walked in, setting her bag down on the table, unaware of what was about to unfold. She stepped into the bedroom, and the moment she saw Michael sitting there, her expression shifted. She knew. The silence between them was suffocating. Michael stood slowly, holding the birth certificate in his hands. "What is this?" His voice was low, controlled, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. Brenda's eyes darted to the document, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. "Michael," she started, but he cut her off. "Why did you lie to me?" His voice rose. "How could you keep this from me?" Brenda swallowed hard. "I was going to tell you, I just..." "When?" Michael snapped. "After the wedding. After we built a life together. After we had kids." Tears welled in Brenda's eyes. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose you." Michael let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You didn't want to lose me? You should have given me a choice, Brenda. You should have told me the truth before any of this." Brenda took a step toward him. "Please, just let me explain." But Michael wasn't listening anymore. His world had just been shattered. The love, the trust, the foundation of their relationship, it was all built on a lie. His heart pounded in his chest, rage and betrayal consuming every thought. And then, something inside him snapped. Without thinking, without fully realizing what he was doing, Michael stormed out of the bedroom and into the kitchen. His hands found the handle of a knife, his grip tightening around it. Brenda followed him, pleading, her voice breaking. "Michael, please, don't do this," but he was past reasoning. In a blind fury, he turned and lashed out. The knife plunged into Brenda's chest, her breath hitching in shock. The moment the blade made contact, reality seemed to slow. Brenda staggered back, clutching the wound, eyes wide with terror. Blood spread across her dress, her lips trembling as she gasped for air. Michael didn't stop. He couldn't. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it all consumed him, driving him to strike again. And again. By the time his mind caught up to his actions, Brenda lay motionless on the kitchen floor. The weight of what he had done crashed over him like a tidal wave. The rage that had clouded his vision moments ago was now replaced by sheer panic. Brenda was dead. His wife, the woman he had once sworn to protect, was gone. Michael stumbled back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His hands, his clothes, and the knife, it was all covered in blood. There was no undoing this. No taking it back. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as the reality of the situation sank in. He had to think. He had to do something. If anyone found out what had happened in this house tonight, his life would be over. And so, in the dead silence of that blood-stained room, Michael made a decision. He was going to cover it up. No matter what it took. At first, no one suspected anything was wrong. Brenda had always been independent, sometimes going days without checking in with her parents when she got busy with work. But after 2 days of silence, her mother's concern turned into full-blown fear. Calls to Brenda's phone went straight to voicemail. Text messages were left unread. Something wasn't right. Her parents reached out to Michael. At first, his explanation seemed reasonable. Brenda had gone to visit a friend and wanted some space. But when they pressed him for more details, his story started to shift. First, he said she had gone to see a childhood friend. Then, he mentioned she had gone to visit family out of town. The inconsistencies sent alarms ringing in Brenda's mother's mind. She knew her daughter. And she knew that if Brenda had truly left, she would have said something. That's when she made the call. The Dallas Police Department responded swiftly, sending officers to the Reynolds home for a welfare check. When they knocked on the door, Michael greeted them, his expression calm but tense. "Is there a problem, officers?" he asked, standing just inside the doorway. "We've received concerns from Brenda Dennison's family," one of the officers said. "They haven't heard from her in 2 days." Michael let out a slow breath. "She's fine," he said. "She left town for a few days." Needed some time to clear her head. The officers studied him carefully. His voice was steady, but his body language told a different story. His eyes shifted nervously, and his hands clenched at his sides. Something felt off. "Do you mind if we take a look around?" one of the officers asked. Michael hesitated. It was only for a second, but it was enough. He forced a smile and stepped aside. "Sure. There's nothing to hide." The officers stepped inside, their eyes scanning the space. The house was clean, too clean. No signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no immediate red flags. But there was something unnatural about the silence. One officer walked through the living room while another moved toward the bedroom. Michael followed closely behind, his breath shallow, his pulse hammering in his ears. Everything was fine, he told himself. He had cleaned everything. There was no way they would find anything. But then, "Sir, can you open this door?" One of the officers had stopped in front of a locked door at the end of the hallway. Michael's heart skipped. "That's just a storage closet," he said quickly. "Nothing in there." The officer turned to look at him. "Still, we'd like to check. Please open it." For a moment, Michael didn't move. Then, with forced casualness, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the key, and slowly unlocked the door. The officer pushed it open, and the moment he did, the air in the house shifted. The smell hit them first. A sickly, metallic scent. Then, the darkness of the small space gave way to something else. A body. Brenda's lifeless form, hidden beneath a pile of blankets. Blood had soaked into the fabric, staining the floor beneath her. Her skin was pale, her body motionless. The silence in the house shattered. "Get him in cuffs," one officer barked, stepping back and reaching for his radio. "We have a body." Michael didn't resist as the cold steel of handcuffs snapped around his wrists. He knew it was over. The forensic team arrived shortly after, carefully examining the scene. Brenda had been stabbed multiple times, deep, forceful wounds that spoke of rage rather than calculation. Blood patterns on the walls and floor told a story different from the one Michael had tried to weave. The crime hadn't happened elsewhere. It had happened right here, in the home they once shared. Michael's carefully crafted story unraveled within hours. The wounds, the blood splatter, the position of Brenda's body, nothing lined up with his claims that she had left voluntarily. And when investigators searched his belongings, they found even more damning evidence: his clothes, hastily washed but still stained with traces of Brenda's blood. Under questioning, Michael tried to maintain his story. "She left," he repeated, his voice tight. "I don't know how she got back here." But the detectives weren't buying it. They pressed him harder, presenting him with the forensic evidence, the blood spatter that matched only one scenario, the wounds that indicated a close-range, brutal attack. Then came the polygraph test. Michael agreed, confident that he could keep his composure. But as the questions started rolling in, "Did you kill your wife? Were you present when Brenda died?" His heart rate betrayed him. He failed. And with that, the final thread of his innocence snapped. Brenda's body told a story that Michael could no longer deny. And now, he had nowhere left to run. Michael Reynolds faced the full weight of his crime in court for the death of his wife, Brenda Dennison. The case had gripped the public, drawing intense media coverage and fierce debate. Was this an act of uncontrolled rage or a calculated crime fueled by deception and betrayal? The courtroom was tense as both sides prepared to lay out their arguments. The prosecution wasted no time in painting a picture of brutality. They argued that this was not an accident, nor a crime of passion, it was a deliberate act of lethal violence. In their opening statement, the lead prosecutor addressed the jury. "This case is not about deception, it is about choice." Michael Reynolds made a choice. He did not walk away. He did not seek help. Instead, he responded with violence, and that violence was fatal. The prosecution walked the jury through the gruesome details of Brenda's murder, emphasizing the multiple stab wounds and the force used in the attack. Forensic analysts took the stand, explaining how blood spatter patterns contradicted Michael's initial claims. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael had not acted in self-defense. He had not even called for help. Instead, he had hidden Brenda's body and tried to mislead authorities. Brenda's parents also testified, speaking about her sudden disappearance and Michael's shifting stories when they tried to reach her. "We knew something was wrong," Brenda's mother told the court. "Michael kept telling us she was away, but something in his voice felt off. We just wanted to hear our daughter's voice again. But we never did." The defense acknowledged that Michael had killed Brenda, but they sought to shift the focus onto his emotional state at the time. Their argument was clear. This was not a premeditated act. This was a man pushed to an emotional breaking point, reacting in a moment of unbearable shock and distress. The defense claimed that Michael had been deeply in love with Brenda and that her secret, kept from him throughout their relationship, had triggered an uncontrollable emotional response. He was betrayed, the defense argued. He lost control. He made a tragic mistake in the heat of the moment. But that does not make him a cold-blooded killer. However, the prosecution countered swiftly, pointing out that anger does not justify murder. They reminded the jury that Michael had ample time to leave the situation, to seek answers, or to walk away, but instead, he chose violence. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours before reaching a decision. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Michael Reynolds, guilty of first-degree murder." A quiet gasp rippled through the audience. Brenda's family held each other tightly, while Michael sat motionless, his fate sealed. During sentencing, the judge addressed the court. This was an act of deliberate violence. The evidence presented shows that the defendant not only killed his wife but also took steps to hide his crime and mislead authorities. This court has no choice but to impose the maximum penalty. Michael Reynolds was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The weight of the verdict settled over the courtroom. Brenda Dennison was gone. And the man who once claimed to love her would now spend the rest of his life behind bars, paying the price for his actions. Brenda Dennison lived with a secret, a truth she feared could shatter everything. She chose love over honesty, believing that some things were better left unsaid. But in the end, the truth surfaced, and with it came unimaginable consequences. Michael Reynolds, in a moment of rage and betrayal, made a choice. One that could never be undone. But was his anger justified? Or was it simply an excuse for murder? This case forces us to ask difficult questions. How does society handle trans identity in relationships? Does secrecy create protection or danger? And in the face of such revelations, how do we define betrayal, acceptance, and morality? But beyond this tragic event lies a larger issue, the way society views and treats transgender individuals. Many, like Brenda, live in fear of rejection and violence, afraid that revealing their true selves could lead to isolation, or worse, death. Regardless of personal beliefs, transgender people deserve to live without fear, without stigma, and without the constant weight of hiding who they are. While some may struggle to understand, acceptance is not about agreement, it's about recognizing someone's humanity and right to exist without judgment or harm. Brenda feared rejection. Michael reacted with violence. But in the end, both became victims, one of fear, the other of his own actions. A love story built on passion and trust, shattered by a devastating secret. A revelation so shocking that it led to a moment of uncontrollable rage, and a brutal murder. But was this truly an act of betrayal? Or was it an unjustified crime, driven by anger and misunderstanding? Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this case? Was Michael's reaction one of justifiable emotion, or was this an act of pure violence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more shocking true crime cases, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, so you'll never miss a case like this one. Next time, we'll dive into another crime that will leave you speechless. Stay tuned.